Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Hey, and welcome back again to Daily Dose Radio. I hope you're having a great week. Don't forget, now we've got apps for you. Our iTunes app is found in the iTunes App Store. You can go there, look for Daily Dose Radio, and download the app. It's free. Put it on your iTunes device. We also have one for Android devices, so go to the Google Play Store and you can find our app for your Android device and download it. It's also free, and you'll have Daily Dose Radio right there at your fingertips. We're looking at verses 13, 14, and 15 today, and we continue the idea of the request. We began in 9 with a request that was similar to what we saw in verse 1. Verse 9 comes after the Selah, and it kind of repeats the idea of verse 1. Keep thou not silence, O God, is verse 1. And now the request gets a little more specific in verse 9. Do unto them as unto the Midianites. So we go back in history, pick up our history from the book of Judges, and we see the Midianites and Jabin and the nations in the north and how they were defeated by the Lord. Now, verse 13, the request continues, O God, make them like a wheel. Let me go ahead and read now. O my God, make them like a wheel, as the stubble before the wind, as the fire burneth the wood, as the flame setteth the mountains on fire. So persecute them with thy tempest, and make them afraid with thy storm. God is being requested by the psalmist here to make them like a wheel. Well, what happens with a wheel? And you'll notice the allusions that are used here, the illustrations, the way he wants to illustrate this request as a wheel, as the fire, as the stubble, as the flame. So let's go and look at those 5 things. A wheel rolls away. And that's what the psalmist here, Asaph, wants to happen to the enemies, which are unnamed. Now, we've talked about enemies from the past, but he wants them to be like the enemies of the past. That is, his present enemies. Let them be like those enemies, like Midian, like Jabin. Let them be like that. Let them be like a wheel, and a wheel, of course, rolls. It would roll away from you. As the stubble. Well, what happens to stubble? In the agricultural example that is given so many times in the Scripture, the grain is hoisted into the air with a shovel. It comes down and hits the threshing floor and breaks the outer husk away from the grain itself. It's picked back up with the same shovel, tossed into the air, and the air carries away the lighter husk, and the grain falls back down onto the threshing floor. So the stubble, what happens to it? Instead of rolling away, it's blown away. As the fire burneth a wood. So fire has an effect on wood. What is it? It completely consumes it. As a flame setteth the mountains on fire. A forest fire would do what? Completely consume the wood of a forest. So he escalates the fire imagery here. And then he says, so persecute them with thy tempest. A tempest is a windstorm, and that goes back to our stubble illustration. Before the wind, let them be as the stubble, powerless against the wind to not get blown away. So here, persecute them or pursue them with your wind, driving them away like that wheel that runs down the hill. And then the final thing, make them afraid with thy storm. So the storm of fire is coming. It's interesting how the judgment of God is often seen in the terms of fire and storm and tempest. And so judgment is coming upon the enemies of God, and it will be a judgment that will completely displace them, remove them, and consume them. Not a place you want to be. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow as we conclude Psalm 83 on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.